Back to burn with another episode of the Blurting While Dad live stream. I'm going all in this year, and what I mean by that is we're going to turn this live stream into a dedicated kind of podcast, and so I want to get it on a lot of podcasting platforms, the old podcasting platforms that Long Boxing While Black was on, and so we're going to be doing some things. But welcome back to the show. Give yourselves a round of applause. Okay. I didn't hear you. Let's give yourself a round of applause. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the entire Aiden Ross and XQC thing. I'm not going to get too far into it. Sorry. I know. But we're going to talk about that. Do a lot of comic book stuff. And we're going to talk our current event segment, How Effed Are We? Is going to be talking about Venezuela and some of the geopolitics of internalized colonialism and how we're starting to see it play out on social media and our discourse as Black people on social media. And so that's what we got cooking tonight. So sit down, put your feet up, enjoy, and let's get this thing going. All right. So top of the show. Again, I said I'm going to do what I don't necessarily want to do, and we're going to talk about Aiden Ross and XQC and the other. I'm sorry. We're going to talk about Aiden Ross and XQC and the other hip hop tourists out there. And I got to give you some definitions here. When I talk about hip hop tourists, they've been called culture vultures. They've been called all kinds of other things. You know, we got your DJ Vlads, academics, even though he meets. He meets the skin tone requirement. Bro still ain't invited to any cookouts that I know of. He's an absolute weirdo. He's weird with kids. He's weird with women, and his energy is way off. But I want to talk narrowly about the stuff that's going on with Doechii and Aiden Ross and XQC and the hate train that they're actually forming against this young lady. And I know I've talked to cats that have specific feelings about Doechii and whatnot. Here's what my take is. The way I view dudes like Aiden Ross and XQC specifically, because I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about why I don't necessarily think that from a hip hop standpoint, it's really weird that they're the tastemakers of the culture. Like, it's bizarre. I use the white boy Jason scale. And the reason why I use the white boy Jason scale is white boy Jason was one of the crew. He called himself white boy Jason. We just went along with it. But white boy Jason, he grew up around us. Like, he grew up around the way. And so he was in our houses. He hung out with us. There was no pretension about who he was or his identity. He was the white dude that was kind of down by law. And when I use the white boy Jason scale to kind of look at Aiden Ross or XQC, I look at it like this. The difference is white boy Jason, I'm not going to keep calling white boy Jason, but Jason grew up around us. Okay. Not just hip hop. He just wasn't familiar with Black people through hip hop. He was actually in the hood with us. And he knew the boundaries. So he knew that there were lines, there were specific lines he didn't cross, and he didn't try to do it. There was no trying with him. This was just his personality. And it was a level of comfort, but he's never entitled, and he's never confused about the proximity to Black people with the ability to, like XQC likes to do, is the N-word. That's it. That's his that's his thing. And he'll say, "Oh, I'm from Canada" or whatnot. What are we talking about? We're talking about. I'm doing a little bit about the shenanigans around Doechii or whatever, and XQC and Aiden Ross and the whole industry plant thing, and why necessarily as an older hip hop head, I'm not necessarily. I don't like this era of kind of the tastemakers being the streaming kids whose only familiarity with Black people comes through hip hop and video games. Okay. But like I said, white boy Jason, he grew up around us. He was cool. He's down by law. He never tried to, it wasn't him doing his imitation of Black folks. This is just how he was. And if we're utilizing the cookout analogy, which I think is pretty played out on social media, specifically when we talk about this white person gets the invite to the cookout and all this other stuff, there's specific people that grew up where that were in proximity to black people that they don't need to be invited to the cookout. They already know what it is. They already know where it is, and we trust them to bring a dish. That's white boy Jason. Now, when I look at like Aiden Ross, who surrounds himself in proximity with a lot of cats, that a lot of the guys that are rhyming and stuff like that, and it's almost like they put this battery in his back where, and I think bro started out as a 2K streamer, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's kind of his background. Um, he started out as the 2K streamer and kind of drifted over into all kinds of other topics and things along those lines. But hip hop became the sticking point. He was kind of involved in the entire Drake Kendrick thing, by proximity and stuff, and he had a lot of opinions there. The reason why I apply the Jason scale, the Jason who grew up around the way with us, to Aiden Ross, is there's a level of familiarity. If I brought XQC or Aiden Ross around my crew when I was growing up, we were the hip hop kids. Um, they would look at him and say, "Hey, this dude think he funny. Don't bring him around here no more. He's too familiar. He's trying to get too familiar." There's this level of familiarity, specifically with him specifically always seeming to talk shit about black women. His chats are wild, the most racist, wild shit that you're going to see online. And when confronted about it, he's like, "Oh, everybody, they hate everybody in my chats." Well, that's kind of bullshit. Like if my chats get to, if my chats get to that point, we gonna have an issue where it's a bunch of racists in the chats. I probably need to reformat my show. And that's kind of what it is. Now, XQC has his own batch of drama. I'm an Overwatch player. I remember him from the Overwatch League and stuff, and him getting into trouble for sprinkling that N word in there liberally and saying, "Well, I'm Canadian, so I don't have the cultural proximity to understand what this means. Like, I'm confused now. I don't know why everybody's so mad at me." And now he kind of ordained himself as this tastemaker in hip hop. And I was on XQC's neck earlier this year about when the Clips dropped that album this summer, and it was like a return to form. And he's talking about who wants to listen to lyrical stuff and all this other stuff. Instantly, your opinion is validated. But he came from the competitive gaming thing, and hip hop just kind of became a topic that he talks about, because I guess I don't have a problem with either one of these dudes being fans of the culture. I really don't. Like, as much as I'm not a huge Drake fan, I respect the fact that dude's a hip hop head. Like, when you go back to his old stuff, his old catalog of work, the reason why I got off of Drake, why I don't really listen to him, is he started rhyming like Elzai and Fontaine for Little Brother. Well, to know who Elzai or Fontaine is from Little Brother, you have to have a level of insider knowledge of the culture, and of hip hop, and not just the commercial side of hip hop, but you're doing mixtapes, you're doing the stuff that you actually have to be a fan of the culture to know about. And so, I don't have a problem with their fandom of the culture. What I have a problem with is positioning yourself as the experts. And then a lot of these rappers, especially with Aiden Ross, a lot of these little dudes will go on there and kiki it up with him and stuff, because it gives them visibility and exposes them to his audience. But I don't see anybody ever checking him for some of the stuff. And he recently got checked. Like, I think Budden said something. Was it Glasses Malone said something, and old boy ran to the cops. Like, he's like, "Whoa, I got the police." That's weak. That is full Karen on display. I can get the cops. So I'm saying all that to say this. If we brought these dudes around the crew when I was growing up, they would have instantly not passed the vibe test, and they would have been kicked out. So I don't understand how they are currently considered kind of tastemakers in the hip hop scene. Nobody I listen to really fucks with them. And it's weird that you're letting these dudes kind of dictate what what is important in the culture and what's not. And this all of a sudden pivot to start attacking a black artist, this young lady, and saying, oh, she's an industry plant and all this other stuff, and getting these hate trains riled up, where you have all these other little unoriginal streamers out there piling on. That's whack. Like, you could not fuck with an artist. You could not, like, it's okay to not like an artist. Like, I don't really care about that side. But the hate train, and you're going to get your white audience to pile on this this black woman that's rhyming, this black artist. That's insidious to me, especially how racist news chats are, because it's not coming from a place of critique of the music or critique of the artist. This is, we see a black woman, we can pile on her. Really ugly shit. I don't mess with either one of these dudes. And I don't really respect folks that use them as kind of their barometer for hip hop. Academics too, like academics specifically, because academics, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this dude, because I can devote a whole show to him, and I'm not going to right now. But dude is last summer he showed he outed himself as a professional weirdo, being weird with that little kid on the stream. I don't even know how we still allow him to comment publicly on hip hop without saying, "Hey, you're a weird pedo," like weird sexually aggressive energy with a child. That is out of bounds to me. And I don't know how anybody didn't pull up on him, but I don't want to get my stream banned for that kind of stuff. So, end of the segment, we're moving on. That's enough of that. I'll probably be doing more of the adult contemporary hip hop theme, but that was just top of mind. That was top of show stuff. And it's kind of addressing some conversations I was having offline. But we're pivoting into comics. Marvel. We need to talk. Marvel, we need to have a conversation here. These events are cheeks, bro. Like they're I've been pretty forgiving with Age of Revelation. I was pretty forgiving with One World Under Doom. But when I look at both of these events next to each other, the best way I can describe it is mildly cheeks. And I'm gonna give you a couple of reasons why. And there's a couple of reasons why they work, right? But it feels like Marvel is really phoning it in for events. And I know for a while DC was the one that was doing the crisis every 3 years to reset the universe. Right now they're in the middle of a crisis event again. DCKO was actually dope. And I was nervous about DCKO. I thought DCKO was going to be some old bullshit, and it was actually really good. I'm enjoying the way that they framed these matchups, where it's a best of 3 and you have the two characters fighting each other, and it's almost like a fighting game. And they're allowing the characters to choose their forms. And so you get things like where the Flash can make himself into the Speed Force, and Guy Gardner can go to whatever that alien thing that they had him doing in the 90s, where he can make weapons with his arms. So like Wonder Woman can dig in and go back and find versions of herself that are more powerful. Like, I enjoy the way that they're pursuing this, and the matchups have been pretty good. My favorite so far has probably been Harley Quinn versus Zatanna. And because there was other layers that they were playing with there, other layers at play. And so DC is absolutely lapping Marvel when it comes to the events outside of the Ultimate stuff. I do feel like they probably rushed to a conclusion on some of the Ultimate books. I still don't know how Ultimate Spider-Man ended, and I haven't had a chance to download any books this week, and so I need to go back and see if they dropped the end of Ultimate Spider-Man, because we already got into the prelude or the Maker emerging and stuff like that. And so we're kind of into the city opening and the Maker emerging, and the Ultimates kind of dealing with the fallout of that. And so we've already been one issue deep. I don't have a problem with the way the Marvel rebooted the Ultimate Universe. I do have a problem with their 2 signature events this summer. One World Under Doom was just long for no reason. Like, it was long for no reason. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it would not fucking end. It went on and on and on. And let's not. One World Under the Doom started really, really dope. Like I was hype about One World Under Doom when it first started. Um, Doom takes over the world. He has the Sorcerer Supreme power from that Marvel Vampires event, whatever that was. Um, Takes over the world. He gets the sorcerer. He tricks Doctor Strange out of the Sorcerer Supreme power, which kind of seems to be the default setting for Doctor Strange. Apparently, is um, getting suckered out of his powers, but that's neither here nor there. Um, he ends up making the world a better place and actually turning the population of the world against the superheroes because of how he's made the world a better, safer, more fulfilling place at the cost of Latveria, but we didn't find that out until like later on, way late in the series. But it started out interesting power dynamic. We have seen Doom ultra powerful before, where he had stolen the Beyonders' powers back in the days, and we then also during the Secret Wars in 2015, where he had stolen the Beyonders' powers set again. But it started out really, really strong and had some really interesting premises. And the first couple of books are the superheroes trying to thwart Doctor Doom and him humbling them and making them look stupid and turning public opinion against them. Okay, we've established that the superheroes are jokes and that they can't stop Doom. And then the next issue, superheroes try to stop Doom. He makes them look stupid. They're jokes. Okay. Now we got Dormammu coming. Dr. Doom uses superheroes, makes them look like jokes, defeats Dormammu. Okay. And so now we're in issue after issue after issue of the heroes looking like inept clowns and Dr. Doom always coming out on top. I understand the theme. We get it. Like you're kind of beating us to death with it. But then we get to the final issues of One World Under Doom. And this is where we start having problems. And I think I showed it had to be issue 6 or 7. I don't know if it was the end of it, but it was getting close. And it's Dr. Doom kind of has he has Mr. Fantastic jammed up. Like he's tugging at his face. Like when you look at it, it looks low key kind of crazy. Like this is right here. Like One World Under Doom. This is kind of this is getting close to the end issue. And this is how Dr. Doom is playing Mr. Fantastic. And Mr. Fantastic, if you don't know, in One World Under Doom, towards the end, he does his entire thing where he learns magic and he's going to combat Doom with magic. And then Doom makes him look like a complete idiot again and sends him packing. And then shenanigans ensue. The whole Marvel roster decides to bum rush Dr. Doom and he wants to send them a message. So he does this thing where he creates this magic shrapnel that's going to injure or incapacitate some of them. But shocker, Valeria Richards had teleported on the scene and she ends up getting basically like dismembered by the shrapnel that Doom created, sending Doom into a grief spiral where he tries to undo all the stuff that he had done. But he had set that moment of time as a permanent moment in time, and he had to go to the living tribunal. And yeah. Anyway, my problem with One World Under Doom is I understand we need to establish Doom as a threat. We've never needed to not establish. Like Doom has always been the team busting villain. He's always been him, Magneto, Apocalypse. Like these are always the guys that you need to send the whole squad in, and he will pack you up individually in gift wrap boxes and send you back to where you came from. I ain't got a problem with that. I got a problem with you're expecting us to invest in these stories of these heroes, and specifically with the Fantastic Four, they were completely ineffective in this story. And I'm used to Fantastic Four and Dr. Doom stories where Reed Richards and Sue and Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm and all of them are able to find a way to overcome the odds and take advantage of Dr. Doom's blind spot when it comes to Reed Richards. They were useless in this story. And I understand the Deus Ex Machina that has to happen where Dr. Doom defeats himself because he gets too, I don't know, his hubris gets too out of control. He ends up defeating himself. It's the same plot device that they use with Thanos. I get it, but if you're going to have if you're these events should really position your heroes as pillars of the universe and them overcoming the odds to defeat, the villains. The Fantastic Four were completely ineffective. Even Franklin Richards. I thought we were going to see something dope with Franklin Richards where Franklin watched his little sister get chopped up, and then he's going to flip, and now we're dealing with Doctor Doom's dealing with an enraged Franklin Richards, and now he's got to contend with that, and it ends up being overpowering force. There was no level of competence shown by any of the heroes in one. There was nothing. It was embarrassing. Um, and I think to me that was the issue with the book. One, it was too long. Two, I don't even know why we had the heroes in the book. Like I don't know why. Like they served no purpose. After a couple of noticeable defeats, maybe we need to figure out another device, another plot device to kind of defeat Doctor Doom. We use Valeria Richard and his compassion and his care for Valeria Richards. Doom sold his first boo thing to the devil for ultimate power. I get it, but I don't get it though. And so I just it ended in an unimpressive way. But then we're heading into the last will and testament of Doctor Doom. Okay, now we got some promise here. Um, you know, Doctor Doom before he goes off and sees he goes off, sees the Living Tribunal. We don't necessarily know the arrangement that he made with them. I'm imagining that it's probably the Nick Fury man on the wall arrangement that he had with the Watcher as penance for original sin. But that's neither here nor there. He goes to the one above, or not the one above all, the Living Tribunal, I should say, and has him kind of unfuck the thing that he fucked up. Okay, I get it. And then he sends his last will and testament to Reed Richards, and basically he bequeaths everything to Valeria Richards. Interesting story. I still don't like how the Fantastic Four are complete imbeciles and useless in all facets. This is the first family of Marvel. Like they're the ones that are able to punch way above their weight class and make amazing things happen, and they have not done that in decades. And maybe I'm sore about it. Like maybe I got a sore spot because for me, Ben Grimm is also one of my favorite characters, and it hurts me to see him so useless. Like no value. He shouldn't even exist at this point, and I don't like it. But it is what it is. What it is. Um, it just got too long. It felt like, and I know they even had a break in the middle of it, so there was a month or two where no books came out, and so it made it even feel even longer. Okay, it just making Reed Richards this idiot who is ineffective in a story. I don't understand why he's in there. Now let's go to the Age of Revelation because this was the other side of the mildly cheeks events. Stop describing me. All right. This is the other side of the mildly cheeks events in Marvel, right? Um this is where they had a big tie-in at the end of Krakoa, at the end of the Krakoan era, where Apocalypse was having a tournament to determine who his heir was. Now, part of me feels like this shit came completely out of left field. It really did. And I need to go ahead and put Age of Revelation up on the screen. But Apocalypse had this big tournament where he's going to figure out who his heir was, and I'm not going to go look up who was in there. I can't remember. I didn't care enough. But the winner ended up becoming Cypher, Doug Ramsey. One, why? There's so many other interesting things you could do with Cypher, and we're gonna make him the heir of Apocalypse. Okay, so it's kind of jarring. Doug is this soft-spoken person that's seen, whose power set isn't really respected in combat situations, but is tremendously useful. So we're gonna buff him by giving him the rub up against Apocalypse. Apocalypse gives him the rub, and now he has some apocalypse. He has Apocalypse tech. Okay, and so he ends up christening himself as Revelation. And his power, he gets the power of speech where he tells you something and you have to do it. Okay, we'll rock with it. What we're heading into is the anniversary. I think it's like the 25-year anniversary of Age of Apocalypse. So that means that we have to do Age of Apocalypse again. Um, and Tom Revord or whatever bro's name is, this was on him because I think he is the editor of the X-Men books. It started out kind of strong again. Started out okay. Now I do have some structural issues with the story and I think for me, when it came to Age of Revelations, one of my problems with it was I did not like uh Doug Ramsey as the big bad of it. I'm gonna show you who I'm talking about here because my boy Fearless told me that a lot of this is kind of useless without pictures, and so I'm going to put Doug Ramsey up on the screen, and how he won the whole shebang bang. Open image, a new tab. So I'm gonna show you Doug here. Strife was, believe Strife was one of the ones in there. If not, he should have been. He would have been my choice to give him the revelation thing because it seems like a natural into the story. He is basically Strife is a clone of Cable raised by Apocalypse. It made sense from a narrative standpoint. It made sense from a motivation standpoint. I don't like this idea that Doug was just a regular run-of-the-mill trying to save the day hero, and then because Apocalypse said you are now my heir, he's going to throw all of that away, and he was on some bullshit. Bullshit with his teammates and treating them horribly, and the ultimate betrayal of Warlock, which was kind of gross. And so that was a gap, and that was, to me, that was a problem with the way the book went. You put Strife in there, you make Strife the main villain of it, and you instantly change it. It's not jarring that all of a sudden Strife is an asshole, because Strife was always an asshole in the books. Like, Strife was always this asshole character who was a clone of Cable. He came about in Executioner's Song, if I'm not mistaken. He had a very 90s design where it was lots of spikes, lots and lots of spikes, and for no apparent reason, and just like this metal suit, lots of spikes. But I think he would have been a more compelling. Damn, I need a bigger image of that. I honestly believe that Strife would have been a more compelling. You could tell more stories with him as Revelation, because he already has a strong power set. He gets augmented by Apocalypse, and you could do pretty much the same storyline where you have the choristers who are boosting his power and enabling him. He has this massive plan for mutant kind, and the time displaced X-Man of the moment, which would have been Cyclops, has to find a way. He actually has a connection with Strife. He has old beef with Strife. He's already stopped him, and Jean Grey have stopped Strife before him. Jean Grey and Cable have had to try to stop him before. Like, there's so many narrative elements that they missed by, like, okay, let's go with Cypher. We're going to make Cypher the villain of this. And it just, I don't know, man. It was whack. Like, for the lack of a better word. This is Strife, by the way. Strife is a clone of Cable. And Cable, if you don't know, is the son of Madeline Pryor and Cyclops that got infected with a virus by Apocalypse, and they had to send him into the future to where they had a cure. And that's kind of the story of Cable. So Cable came back as this mysterious being. You didn't quite know who he was. And then they kind of unpacked who he was and said, okay, he's actually the baby of Cyclops. If you want to know what Cable's power set is, he basically has the Jean Grey power set, where is unlimited telekinesis. Like, he can pretty much do anything on a telekinetic level. The only thing that's his barrier is the fact that he still has to use his telekinesis to keep the techno organic virus from taking over his body. And that's who Cable is. Strife is a clone of Cable, and I don't believe he has to deal with the techno-organic virus. And so his application of his telekinesis is unrestrained. And since he was raised by Apocalypse, he has kind of the Apocalypse bloodlust, if you will. I think he would have. I honestly believe that if you're looking for a villain who could have sat in that chair as Revelation, I think Strife was a better choice. Because I still like right now, we still have to explain, like, yes, and I'm going to spoiler alert. So if you don't want to be spoiled on the end of Age Revelation, you can log off now. It sucked. It was one of the goofiest things. It didn't make any sense. They teased what the end was, and even when they teased it, I'm like, there's no way that they're going to do this, you know. And really, it was a ripoff of the Sins of Sinister plot lines, where in Sins of Sinister we have to form this shared identity and put all the become a dominion. And I'm not going to go into the Dominion thing. It's Marvel science. It makes sense in the Marvel world. But basically, we're going to combine all the technology and become so technologically advanced that this thing becomes its own sentience or own presence in the universe that exists across space and time. So, long story short, Cypher subjugates the world. He gets choristers who boost his powers so that he can keep more people under control. He creates an X virus that's supposed to turn everybody into a mutant. It does not work. It kills some mutants, kills a lot of humans, absolutely destroys the world. And Age of Revelations happens 10 years after Cypher created the techno-organic or the new virus. We find out that he basically made Warlock into the delivery system for the virus. And so for no apparent reason, no character issue, no reason given in the story, Doug used his best friend as a chemical weapon to basically doom the world. And since it's a future thing, this version of Doug still exists. And I don't necessarily know how we reconcile the existence of Revelation. How we redeem him at this point? Because yeah, he hasn't done what he did in the book yet, since the book was a 10-year time skip. But you've basically ruined the character of Cypher for everybody. The underdog you could cheer for, the friendship of Warlock and Doug. And I don't know how you get that back. Or you could have taken a character like Strife, who was already villainous, who already had the connection with time displacement, who already had the connection with Apocalypse, who already had his own agenda, which set him against Apocalypse. You could have already put the conflict between Strife and Apocalypse in the forefront. We could have had this reveal of who Revelation actually is. It could have been Strife. And then we go from there, and we redeem the Executioner song. We redeem Strife as a character and not make him this throwaway ultra powerful X-Men villain that we just throw on the shit pile every couple of years. And you don't ruin one of the favorite characters of 90s era comic book nerds. It was an absolute mess. It went too long. And for the payoff was stupid, bro. Like, Doug's entire MO for releasing the virus to turn everybody into a mutant was, when we're all one organism, then there are no mutants, there's no separation. It was the dumbest motivation. It's instant. It becomes what Sins of Sinister was, where Sinister is trying to become a dominion by absorbing all the AI technology and whatnot, and forcing himself into being a dominion. It's just another variation, and we deal with Doug the Living Planet. Absolute bullshit. Sorry, Marvel. I'm sorry, but that was one of the goofiest endings I've seen to a major crossover event. I don't know. Like, to me, it almost put me off, and I need to show you what this thing looks like. Doug the Living Planet. I need to see if they got it. But yeah, that was the end of that. That was the end of Age Revelations, and then they go back, and now the ending I can actually rock with. Like the ending of it, the way they set up the ending, and pivoting back into the story. Um, Once we get back into the actual, there's a whole lot of who shot John shenanigans that happen after Cyclops returns, because initially they sent Cyclops and Beast into the future. Cyclops returns, Beast returns, but he's confused. And you're like, okay, so what did you learn in the future? And he's not aware of what he learned in the future. And through some convoluted plot point, the beast that actually got sent into the future was the current version of Beast, who is basically Dark Beast. And I'll show you all of these people, guys. But the current version, like if you weren't reading like the X books, like if you weren't reading the X books, you weren't reading the Krakoa era. They made Beast awesome. They basically took the concept of Dark Beast that came, and so this is Doug the Living Planet. I don't even want to call him Revelation. It's Doug the Living Planet, and it's every bit as stupid as it looks. But it feels like it almost feels like the ending of a really, really, really shitty What If book from the 80s or 90s, where it's the dumbest ending that you can possibly have. And that's how I felt Age of Revelation. They found the single dumbest ending that they could possibly put together and slap in there. And I don't like to shit and wipe my feet all over creator stuff. I like Jed McKay. This was trash. And I think narratively, I think we might have had some editorial meddling that created this that gave us Doug the Living Planet. Doug the Living Planet. Doug the Living Planet. I have seen the end times, and thy name is Doug the Living Planet. The agent of the apocalypse, the agent of the end of the world, end of Earth as we know it, is Doug the Living Planet. Be for fucking real. We could have put Strife in this position. There's so many other one-off villains we could have put in there. Where's Sebastian Shaw? He's not doing anything. We can dust him off and throw him in here. Who else? The one that boosts everybody's powers. He was one of the choristers, if I'm not mistaken. But we could have done so. There's so many X-Men villains that they could have slid in for Doug that would have made sense. This didn't make any sense. The story ended dumb, and it kind of took me. It was deflating. But then again, they set it up where we got, okay, so are we going to get Dark Beast as the reveal of the big bad? Okay. And it's not necessarily future Dark Beast, it's current Dark Beast. Is Beast on his villain arc, because if you're reading X-Force during the Krakoa era, Beast was on some demon time, bro. Beast was absolutely out of control, and it was the most interesting the character's been in years. And so the big reveal is we find out that the next 3K is kind of set up as what used to be the Freedom Fighters or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They're just kind of revamped now, and it's 3K, and it looks like the director of 3K has the personality. Is basically Dark Beast in a synthetic body. Is basically the evil version of Hank McCoy in a synthetic body, which I think has some legs to it. I'm not willing to drop all of my Marvel reading yet, but Age of Revelation almost made me do it. Like, making Doug the villain didn't make a lot of sense. From a character development standpoint, it didn't make a lot of sense. From even if you read all the Krakoa books and how Doug was portrayed in those books, it didn't make a lot of sense. And it just was it was such an ass pull out of left field that it didn't really land. Like, you got Fabian Cortez there, and Fabian Cortez hasn't been like, he's been the guy behind the guy. Why not make him the guy and make him the villain and make him compelling? Do something besides what y'all did. It was not really that good. And it was just a miss. It was just a miss. It was just a miss. Strife to me made more sense. He's already a force of nature. He already has a built-in extremism. Um, Apocalypse ideology is already embodied. There was no character assassination required. We did not need to do that to Doug. Um, and then you could even play it around with it like, well, is it really Cable? Oh, why did Cable all of a sudden get evil? And the comic book nerd's gonna raise your hand because it's Strife. Yes, because it's Strife. But at least you get to play around with the people that don't know. Okay. So we didn't need to make Doug Ramsey a character that none of us can like. You can't use him now. Like you can't use to me, you can't use Doug in any way, shape, or form right now. And Doug was one of like New Mutants. Like I really mess with him, and I just feel like he's useless now. And since he is still technically Revelation, we just know what he does in the future. What's gonna happen to him? That means that Doug's got to go. They're gonna pack Doug up, and they're gonna kill Doug again. And 5 years from now, when Marvel needs to bring back all the viewers that they chased off with their latest string of crossover events that have no impact or get the characters wrong, then Doug will just emerge, and Doug and Warlock will be back again, and we'll rejoice for a little bit of time till they want to misuse him again. Mildly cheeks, kind of smelly. That's how the two signature Marvel events this year. That's kind of how I view them. Uh, uh, I need y'all to get it together. I need y'all to step up and match the energy that's in the Hulk book with Philip Kennedy Johnson. Like I need you to step up and do that. Because that Hulk book is on fire. I need you to match the energy that's in the Ultimates reboot. Because that is actually really good storytelling. It got Spider-Man right. The Luke Cage prison thing was kind of weird. But I know Luke Cage is, has a backstory in prison. And I get it. The way they framed it was a little bit weird, but I still rock with it. But the ultimate reboot is really good. But your mainline books is trash. Like your mainline crossover events were not good this year, and we need to do better. And I have a feeling, like I have this weird fear that X-Men is only going to continue to get worse until we change the editorial team on it. That's neither here nor there. Who? This is off the script. I did read the latest issue of Absolute Batman. Got more backstory on. We got some lore drops on Arkham Asylum. We got some lore drops on the Joker, and we got a preview of the next group of rogues that Batman's going to be dealing with, all in one book. We also got a chance to see I don't want to say necessarily a Batman villain, but he crosses over as a Batman villain, and they're making him a Batman villain. I'm not going to get into too many spoilers because I know a lot of you have not read this book and have not seen it yet. But if you get a chance, go check out the new Absolute Batman drop. It's fire. They haven't missed yet on Absolute Batman. They have not missed yet on Absolute Batman. And we're talking about gothic horror right now, like hardline gothic horror. The latest Batman book was shocking in a good way. Not just Mark Miller's use of over-the-top gore and violence just to avoid telling a good story. This has actually served a purpose, and it was good. And it was back in the horror bag of Scott Snyder. Go check out the new Absolute Batman. We'll talk about it next week. That's your assignment. I'm not going to spoil it for y'all too much. The next segment. So I have a segment that is kind of current events. And if this stuff if current events is the thing that you're going to fight about, this may not be the stream for you. But the segment's called How Fucked Are We? And it's my current event segment. We just invaded Venezuela. We're on the idiocracy level right now. We invaded Venezuela. And the pattern I'm seeing is America does deserve the smoke for this imperialism that we have. the country does. We are an imperialist nation, and we use our military to create advantages for the corporate interests that we have running this place. Okay. American imperialism has killed a lot of people. It's harmed a lot of people. Not a good thing. Going in, removing a country's president, whether we like him or not, um, is not a good thing. It opens the door for any country to do that. A hell, a country could do that to us. And understand that our administration has given them plenty of reason to say that we have a corrupt con man in office making decisions. So, um, uh, the thing that I run into in the discourse online, because here's the thing, and we're going to talk narrowly about Black folks. Typically, we are the ones that, when there is an injustice happening to a marginalized group, we're the ones that are out in the streets trying to show solidarity. We're the ones organizing to show solidarity with oppressed people across the world. That's kind of been the MO of Black people and the position of Black people for a long time. And as such, we're also one of the more vocal groups of people when it comes to injustice online. And for a lot of people, their entire praxis is I make posts on social media, and that is the extent of my activism. That's the extent of my groundwork. I'm not here to say one way or the other. I do think that a lot of people who really, really super loud about the activism side, I do think I've seen them actually put real activists in danger because of their addiction to taking pictures and logging everything. I've seen them disrupt movements and be used as proxy to go and disrupt movements because of how online and how much attention they have to draw to themselves utilizing online stuff. And so I did an entire piece this summer. If you're going to be out in the streets, leave your phone at home. If you can't leave your phone at home, find a way that you're not taking pictures of people and stuff like that. And you're keeping a lot of discussion about your activism and your demonstrations off of the social media platforms if it's identifying people. I've talked about that at length. I did that this summer. Okay. The thing I encountered, and this is just scrolling through the worst hell site on the planet, which is Twitter. His mama named it Twitter. I'm gonna call him Twitter. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and rightfully so, Black folks are like, "Yeah, we try. It's fucked up what y'all did to Venezuela. We don't support what the administration is doing. Um, you know, we tried to prevent this administration from coming to power." And there's a weird theme that I was seeing from the response. One, people were like, throwing all Americans in one bag. And one thing that people don't understand about this country is the way that we set up the when we have marginalized groups in this country, they never avoid the brunt of American imperialism. Indigenous people and Black people are typically ground zero. And this is one of the longest running, I don't think people understand, America's one of the longest running colonial projects that's still active in the world. That's one. Two, everything that America has done to other countries, aside from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was beta tested in some way, shape, or form on Black people and Indigenous people, from chemical warfare to biological warfare to testing, whether we're testing experiments, we're testing, diseases on people and things along those lines. People do get the Tuskegee experiment fucked up by saying, that they were testing experimental drugs. Tuskegee experiment was infecting Black people with syphilis and providing them no drugs to combat it and watching them die. And that happened like up until a few years before I was born, if we're talking about recency of the events. But America has always done, like, we've always been kind of the place where they tested. Even our segregation policies and Jim Crow was kind of a blueprint for for how Nazis wanted to segregate their countries. Okay. And so Black people have never really necessarily been insulated from American imperialism, even though some of us become agents of it. And it's a complex relationship to explain to people. But what I was dealing with was Black Americans were catching all the smoke from all around the world for this thing, saying, why didn't we stop it? Why didn't we do anything? Why didn't y'all take up arms and everything? And I think I need to really hip y'all to something. Um, Whenever we protest something, whenever Black people mobilize, the level of aggression that is shown, and I'm speaking from personal experience, the level of when we protest, the level of aggression that is directed towards us outstrips literally almost any other group. It's not even close. So when we go out to protest, we put ourselves in enhanced risk. Um, we're not we're about 6 years removed from them finding the Ferguson activists dead. And it wasn't one, it wasn't two, it was 6. All died of mysterious circumstances. And you talk to people around there, they were probably killed by the state. Because like found up in burnt up cars, found in weird situations where somebody is actually trying to cover up the means by which they died. Okay. That is what happened to some of our most prominent young activists last time we had right before we had 2020. They were finding Ferguson activists dead. And nobody cared except Black people that were in the activism space and some Black people in general that were paying attention to what's happening. I was at the Million Man March in 1995. I was 15 years old. And one of the things I remember about walking up to the Capitol, we got off the train. My family lived in I had family in Baltimore. I got on the train with cousins in Baltimore and rode to DC on the train. We got off the train. It was probably about 5 o'clock in the morning as we're walking up to the Capitol. The sun is just peeking over. Sun is just now coming up. And we step out onto the street and look up, and I look up and there's snipers on the roofs, positioned all over DC, all over that Capitol district. Walk a little bit further, there are tanks. And soldiers with long guns, like all over DC when we went for the Million Man March. They were prepared to blow us all to hell. And absolutely massacre us if need be. This is 1995. Okay. And one of the arguments I saw online was, and January 6th, we were talking about January 6th. Today is January 6th, so we're going to talk about it. Well, you saw what happened with January 6th when those people stormed the Capitol. Why aren't Black people getting up and storming the Capitol if you don't want this American to be doing this imperialistic stuff in your name? There is no way any group of Black people would have got within a half a mile of the Capitol building on January 6th in mass that large. That would have never happened. And I stand 10 toes down on that because I've seen how they mobilized heavy armaments and stuff just for the Million Man March, and nothing happened on the. There was peaceful. We picked up our own trash after the Million Man March, right? Midday, I'm walking around to go get a plate. I'm walking down to a vendor to get a plate of fish. I'm 15 years old. Like, I'm 15 years old. I had been to DC before, but I had a level of freedom where I could just kind of wander around. I had my family around me and stuff, and I could kind of experience this on my own. Went down to get a plate. People are singing and having a good time. I look over and see the guardsmen and the other military they deployed, the other security that the police had deployed. I think it might have been the National Park Service had deployed. They're sitting on their tanks sleeping because nothing had happened. They came to arm for bear and we gave them nothing. Had January 6th been a bunch of Black people, it would have been an absolute slaughter. I have no doubt in my mind. So to tell Black people, why aren't you out storming the Capitol behind what happened in Venezuela? We would have never made it to the Capitol. and pointing out the relative handful, because it's a relative handful. I know that their percentages look different, but there's still a relative handful of the total black population that are affluent, that are visible, and that have the money where they can have where they have that level of fuck you money. Um, is a handful, but they're the most visible. And so people assume that when they look at Black Americans from a worldwide lens, that we're all living like that. That is not really the norm. Then you look at the relative handful of Black folks that are in military service. Um, a lot of times, specifically when I was growing up, military was a way to escape poverty. You didn't think any further about you didn't think any further about it. Like, life sucks right now. I'm not college bound. I'm not trying to go to jail. Let me join the military. And that was kind of how it was. I was fortunate enough where I had options in high school, but a lot of people I went to school with did not were not afforded those options. And so the history with Black people in the military has always been it's always been different. But the interactions I was getting, specifically online from, because there was like "Death to America," "America sucks," and all this other stuff, and Black people like, "Yeah, my name has been in it, and I ain't in it," and they're like, "But you are," and I'm like, "Okay, elaborate." Well, you live in the country of the imperialists. Oh, okay. Um, what does that have to do with it? Well, you benefit from the imperialism. I understand what you're saying, but there's ways to nuance this argument a little bit and add some layers to this, some subtext to this. Um, a lot of aspects of American imperialism were typically beta tested on Black folks domestically. Um, I can talk about St. Louis, where they were testing out military armaments that they wanted to use in case the Cold War got hot with Russia. And they were testing chemical weapons over St. Louis, and Black people were right under the clouds. And there are Black people that talk about there are clouds of orange smoke, and they have an entire thing of Black people dying. Um, the neighborhood I grew up in is a Superfund site where corporations came in and absolutely put all kinds of lead in the ground and in the water and everything else. And they've been cleaning that up for years. Okay. There are elements of imperialism that Black Americans face internally that the world is not privy to. And so a lot of times when you try to take Black folks or indigenous folks and throw us into the bag of imperialists just because you see that there are some of us that are in the military, um, that's not how that works. We don't necessarily have power. We're kind of captive here. Indigenous Americans are captive here because this is their country of origin. There's nowhere for them to go. Um, and Black Americans are captive because when we were brought here, we were forcibly severed from our country of origin. All of our native languages, all of our native religions, all the stuff that points to where we came from off the coast of West Africa, all of that stuff was purged from us. We have no connection. And I've mentioned this before. It is very humbling because I'm doing my family tree right now. It's a very humbling experience to be doing your family tree and you hit a wall because you have to start going through plantation records. And you get to go and see your relatives, your ancestors, counted like livestock. That is a jarring and humbling experience. And I don't wish that on a lot of people. Because that and I'm a pretty cynical guy, like jaded by experience or whatnot. That absolutely floored me. And so when we talk about Black people's relationship to imperialism in America, we aren't exempt from it. The benefits, the protections we get aren't necessarily protections. I've heard somebody came up with, well, if a Black person gets in trouble overseas, the embassy will advocate for them. Black people internally, we joke about that. Like, you can't go overseas, act a damn fool, because we'll never see you again. They don't care about us. We get lost, nobody looks for us. And if we get in submissive ventures overseas, unless we got money and resources and high profile status, that ain't nothing moving for us. You know, the example that the young lady I was talking to and interacting with online used was what happened with ASAP Rocky, where Trump decided that he was going to intervene on his behalf because he got in trouble overseas. That was 100% of election is coming up, and I gotta win. I gotta throw an olive branch to the Blacks. It's right after the entire defunding and refunding and defunding and refunding and defunding and refunding black colleges stuff. And also in the news cycle was the Ferguson activists that were turning up dead. So there were other aspects of it going on. If ASAP Rocky was Brian Rocky over in another country acting like a jackass, I would still be in jail in that other country. They would not even the Trump president wouldn't even care. So there are layers to this. People that, and I'm off my script, like I'm literally off the top of the dome with all this stuff. So I probably need to pivot back to my outline. The idea of why don't y'all revolt? Specifically when it comes to revolting against imperialism in the United States. We get the worst of it. We always have. Our protests, we could even go back to the civil rights era. Y'all didn't really see how brutal some of those protests got, because there was still an element of we have to censor this for television. But you're talking about dogs mauling children, like children, little kids, dogs mauling them, people getting their eyes knocked out with batons, crazy shit. And racialized violence was just kind of the expected norm for us. And so us going out there into this fray and saying that we are going to go out in the streets and march on behalf of Venezuela. Here's what I'm going to say. Let's ask some black Venezuelans how they feel about this whole thing, because the ones that we've seen are the white Venezuelans, and the ones that were banging the hardest on me. And I'm really pointed at this. I'm really going to be pointed here. The Venezuelans I was interacting with are the descendants of the slave owners in Venezuela. Take that for what you want. The America media is showing one side of how people really feel about this Venezuelan thing, and unsurprisingly, it's really this pro-America. It's the same shit they did in Iraq, right? Like when they executed Saddam Hussein, the Iraqis who were out there cheering in the streets. Some of them that they didn't show weren't necessarily cheering. Others were worried about the reach of our aims in that country, and their fears were validated through our behavior and our ongoing presence in Iraq. Okay, so they were some of them were happy that the dictator they didn't like got ousted. Okay, just because you're seeing the cameras focus on the ones that are cheering, we're ignoring the ones that aren't cheering. 1, 2, we're also ignoring the ones that were leery about our presence in the first place because they just got invaded by another country. Okay, but that's besides the point. Here's what I'm gonna say. Black people are catching strays for this shit, and there was no real reason for us to continue to catch those strays, because we don't necessarily have the power to affect anything. We tried to stop this. We tried to prevent the administration from taking power, and you can look at the voting numbers. And I'm not into electoralism. I don't think that that's your answer or whatnot. But we did make the effort to try to prevent the administration from taking hold. And even Angela Davis understood that when you're dealing with incrementalism in a political system, typically you go with the one that is going to try, that you believe is going to do less harm, and the one that you can push the furthest to your point, which would have been the one that you can push the furthest to the left in her framework. And so this idea that elections are going to save us, I do think is bullshit. But Black people made the effort to try to prevent this administration from taking hold. And right now, Black folks on social media, specifically yesterday in the aftermath of all of this invasion of Venezuela, we're catching strays for what a white nationalist administration is doing. Why didn't you stop them? What are we supposed to do? We tried to tell y'all how these motherfuckers were, and nobody wanted to believe us. Black Americans don't control the state. We don't control the military. We don't control capital. We don't control foreign policy. We don't control policing. We don't control courts. I don't care if Obama was president. That didn't mean shit for us. One Black president in like 45, 46 is still a very, very, very marginally slim number, and we have no control over this. We're visible. We don't necessarily have power to affect this. You're wondering why black celebrities aren't speaking up or engaging in that way, because black celebrities know how tenuous their power in this society actually is. It's super conditional. And um, if the society decides that if they rightfully decide that they don't want to fuck with you, they will divest from you, and you will be on the Kanye mission. And I'm not even defending Kanye; he earned every bit of that divestment. But there are other people that have uh, um, transgressed in similar manners, and they ain't seeing half of the smoke that he's gotten in terms of divestment. So but the internalized imperialism, let's talk about this. The empire taught the world to see itself, taught the world to see us as unified, right? See the United States as one unified monolithic thing. What you guys don't necessarily see is the oppressed people, because a lot of times when the cameras fix on your typical American, it's not going to show the people that are the meat that's being fed into the grinder. It's going to show the people that have graduated past the meat level. It's going to show people in the middle to upper tiers of the American caste system. That's just what it shows. And so oftentimes you're not going to see people that occupy those bottom rungs. I talked about it last week, talking about immigration policy and how black folks and new immigrants are kind of forced in proximity with one another until the new immigrant group graduates up the ladder, and we're still occupying those bottom rungs. Okay. But America moves through whiteness, capital, violence, and black people are usually on the receiving end. Um, and the few of us that actually, some of us say, well, I'm gonna go ahead and, uh, get down or lay down kind of mentality, where they rather not be the targets, they rather be the oppressors. And we deal with that with black police officers all the time in the hood. Take that for what you want. Um, and so I know I'm losing viewers, but this is kind of I know not everybody's gonna abide and line up with this, but shit, I don't care. This is my live stream. And so everything the world says America does to them, which is extraction, surveillance, military violence, and police destabilization. I can't talk anymore. And these are my own notes that I wrote myself. And political destabilization was done to black Americans first. COINTELPRO infiltrated our movements post civil rights era. They used drugs, they used all kinds of other stuff, all kinds of psyop routines and stuff to destabilize any kind of movements that were looking to advance the interests of black people post civil rights era. And that's how it was. So the idea of why don't you revolt is a silly question. Because when we resist, we get the unfiltered, unmitigated force of not only the local American state police force, but we'll get the federals rolled in. Right now, we have black folks right now that are being occupied. Their neighborhoods are being occupied by federalized police. Well, where I stand politically is in solidarity with black folks. It's kind of that's where my alignment goes. And whatever is going to uh, benefit us and insulate us and give us an opportunity to um, try to thrive in a country that is kind of tilted against our progression. And so that's where I stand politically. Um, ideologically, uh, I guess we would identify that as more left-ish. Um, and you go left far enough, that's that you get the guns back, kind of thing. And so for me, I look at the political party system. And I know that we have multiple political parties, like we're in the sixth or seventh iteration of the political party system. The names change, the ideologies change, they align with whatever's going on in the country right now. And so the Democrats of today aren't the Democrats of the 60s. The Republicans of today aren't the Republicans of the 1870s. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So that's how I stand. Um, I think that right now we're over surveilled. I think that we right now we're kind of in this weird corporatocracy where the enshittification of the entire planet is like corporations have this unilateral power to make our lives more miserable and almost act mad at us that we're not giving them more money. Like corporations are actually physically upset with us. Like we're the gatekeepers to them getting access to our money. And they treat us as such. And I think they've been given entirely too much power. I think one of the biggest mistakes that America's ever made, one was getting rid of the fairness doctrine, and two, um, whatever I forgot what um, the Supreme Court verdict that allowed corporations to dump unlimited money into the political system. I hate that supporting black civil rights is a liberal take and not the norm. I do agree. And um but I do think that in this country they make trade-offs and decide what is going to upset the apple cart least. And a lot of times when it comes to civil rights for marginalized people, that is the thing that they see is going to upset the apple cart the most, and that's the thing that gets trimmed. And I think that a lot of times, and the critique I have in terms of traditional, or not traditional, liberalism as we define it in this country right now is um, a lot of times, specifically when it comes to liberals, there's only going to be a certain amount that they're going to go, and I understand it. You got to protect your interest as well, but that isn't always beneficial when you have marginalized people that get pressed to the fringes. Yes, I did. I did participate. And that's one of the things that is always stuck with me is I vote in the national election. I vote in the local election. I always make sure I vote locally, if anything. But yes, I did participate in the national election. And a lot of times I did it in honor of kind of what my mom believed in, because my mom she was in the civil rights era, and so she did go through the time where we weren't allowed to vote, and she did believe in that. So that's something she built into me. But I get more cynical by the day, bro. I got to be honest with you. Um, and yeah, I did vote for Harris because I'm looking at harm reduction and mitigation of it. I didn't necessarily in line with the entire, uh, you know, administration's basically backing of Israel and the whole thing, but um, I did look at it as a harm reduction kind of thing. I'm not that out of like where I'm that in the tank, if you will, for that stuff. Um, I do think that it's a game of incrementalism, and unfortunately, a lot of times the way our political parties are set up, I think what happens is people want it's almost like they want wish fulfillment with their political parties, um, where they want their magical wishes granted. And on one end, you have the right wingers where they are operating in this wish fulfillment kind of narrative, and they basically elected a king, and the king is doing whatever the fuck they want to. And on the other hand, you have the Democrats who are like, "Hey, well, we can't do everything we want to because of laws." And right now, as far as I'm convinced, federal laws are really just a social contract that's been broken multiple times. And his father would go to segregated areas, sneak black kids in the baseball games. Oh, that's cool. They watch their favorite players play. That's really cool. And he put himself at risk, which is kind of a sign of, okay, there's some alignment there. But yeah, for me, it was one of those things where when I look at the political system and how it's kind of currently structured, um, there are so many concessions that you have to make that it almost makes it ineffective. But at the same time, it's literally the only thing that exists right now. And a lot of times people come up with these candidates and they say, okay, well, why don't you vote for this specific candidate? And it's like they have no framework of power underneath them. A lot of times, if you're going to play the political game, then play the political game the way that everybody else plays a political game. And build the politician, build the politician on the local level, and then start working your way up the ladder. Because that's the only way you're going to upset that's the only way you're going to change what we have as the two-party system. But other side is you get bullied at school for it. That's crazy. And a lot of it has to do, it, my mom, when she was trying to integrate lunch counters when she was in high school, she was getting spit on. by people. I don't understand that level of not wanting people around. That is illogical. And I always say that racism is an illogical thing. Um, I had a kid, and I'm kind of far off field, but I worked case management, and I was a supervisor. And we had a kid on one of my staff had a kid on their caseload who was a mixed kid. He's biracial, and he was the only black kid in his home. So his little brother and sister were blonde hair, blue eye, white kids. His mom was white, and what happened was mom would segregate him in his own house, and she would treat him differently in his own home. He wasn't allowed to hang out with his little brother and sister. He wasn't allowed to participate in family activities and everything. And when she got mad at him, she would call him the most unfiltered, unhinged slurs that you've ever heard in your life. And I've worked with people that are suffering mental breaks, and I've had fire extinguishers thrown at me and all kinds of other stuff. I have yet to hear some of the things that I've yet to have some of the slurs that were directed at this kid directed at me. And this is like a 14 or 15-year-old kid, and it's his own mother doing it, right? And so you're like, oh man, she's super racist and blah blah blah. Here's the problem. We did what we call protective, like we assessed the parental capacity of this mom and assessed how she took care of this kid and her alignment with actually being a parent. And she scored super high when it came to this kid. She still fuss over him about, making sure that he's not going out without his coat on cold weather. And she always made sure he ate. And she'd do all the other mother things that you would expect a mom to do who's caring for a younger teenager. But when she got mad at him, that's when all the slurs came out. And so you had a mom who was so angry at this kid's father that it turned into the most vile racism directed at him whenever he stepped out of line. But she still fussed over him like a mother. Racism is completely irrational. She called this boy some of the ugliest slurs you've ever heard, and then worried about if he was wearing his hat when it was cold outside, and if he had eaten, and all the other stuff that moms do. And so that's why I say racism is an irrational thing, because it bypasses a lot of the logic centers. That's why there are hardline bigots who are married to black women, and white women who hate every other black person except their black husband, or super racist white folks that are married to Mexicans or whatever, because the lust or the connection bypasses the logic. It's really a weird thing, and I don't want to get my stream banned, but I've looked into it, and there's a level of racial fetishization and sexual stuff. There's a whole list of this. If you want a resource on it, there's books called The Delicious Negro, and I forgot what the study was when they talk about the sexual politics of the plantation. It's gross and weird. But it also reinforces my point that racism is an irrational thing. Oh yeah, I'm in Nebraska. I'm in the blue dot in Nebraska. And so the blue dot that went for Harris and it went for Obama, and went for Biden, and they haven't stopped punishing us for it yet. I've interacted with people online who are from other parts of Nebraska that see Omaha and Lincoln as pretty much the Detroit of Nebraska, and the governor actively legislates against us. They actively try to screw over our resources, and a whole lot of other shit. And so being a blue island in a red state isn't much more appealing. Imagine how horrible it was for someone to fall for someone and they end up being a different race, and it was illegal back then. Yeah. And it was crazy, but also, like I said, some of that is actually detached. When people talk about the love story between Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson, well, it wasn't a love story. Like, a slave can't say no, right? And so he had a slave girl that he kept hostage, and impregnated her, and it was supposed to be this well-spun love story, and he began to feel some kind of way for her, but then also enslaved her children. Weird. So, but yeah, that's pretty far afield. Like I said, my politics are left are more left than liberal, but also not that left where we can't find some kind of compromise on a lot of different things. Yeah, and I think I'm like I did a little bit of my family tree and some branch of my family tree, and it may not even be necessarily connected from me, but some branch of my family tree is veering towards some of the Jeffersons, specifically the ones that might have been in Kentucky. And so it's kind of a weird journey. Uh, I have to get over I'm still shaken up. And I'll be honest with you, I'll be transparent. I'm still shaken up by going back because I'm doing the family tree. And then now I'm into the slave record side of things. And seeing your ancestors sorted and listed like livestock is absolutely jarring. And I had to put it down. I actually had to put it down. Like I actually had to stop because it's really jarring to see people that are related to you marked and described as livestock. It was gross. And so I stopped my family tree at that point. So I'll revisit it at some point in the future. But yeah. And so, like I said, and I'm heading at 9 o'clock. I gotta go make sure my kids are getting ready for school here. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But I do appreciate you jumping on. I really do. Yeah, a lot of black people are related to Jefferson. Um, Uncharted Freezer, I'm normally here on Tuesday nights. If you want to jump on the stream and pop comments in, I'm cool with that. But I'm gonna go ahead and kind of do my wrap up thing because I got my kids that I gotta get ready for school tomorrow. Yeah, the framework of black people revolting against this government is kind of flawed because we have no power to really do anything, and we tried we tried to prevent this regime from taking power, and we saw how that worked out. So yes, some black Americans serve. That doesn't mean we control the military. We don't benefit equally, and some joined because um, economic conditions of the world kind of forced their hand. And I have elders, I have people that have since passed on and a couple that haven't, they're still with us. They didn't have a choice with their military service. They were conscripted in. Hey man, take it easy. They were conscripted in. And so the military service side of things was they're left with the nightmares of it and they didn't have a choice. And so yeah. But for black families, a lot of it, the military is healthcare, it's education, it's housing, it's survival, it's an option of having stable work, a pathway to make sure that you can get your education and your healthcare is taken care of. And so being forced to survive in an imperialist of society like America, black and indigenous people are forced to make concessions that they normally wouldn't make. But it doesn't mean that you're directly responsible for the actions of the empire. Okay. So black folks, we didn't decide to invade Venezuela. We didn't vote for any of this. And we don't have any say in the foreign policy. So watching us catch strays on social media, like we're the ones that invaded Venezuela, is wild. Okay. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we export black imagery across the world, where everybody thinks that we have all these Benzes and we have all these houses and we have all this power and all these weapons and all this other stuff. And really you're seeing people play acting a thing in the music video and stuff like that. We ain't got it like that. Okay. If you're mad at Venezuela and American imperialism, that's cool. Direct it at the empire. And we'll still direct it at the empire as well. But understand that there are Americans here who neither benefit from the imperialism in the way that y'all think. There are protections. I'm not going to say that there aren't, but we do not benefit to the extent that a lot of y'all think we do, because most of the aggressive actions that we've seen deployed around the world were tested on us first. Okay. Directed at the white nationalists, they're actually invading the countries. And understand that 80 some odd percent on average of the black folks that did vote try to prevent this. Cool. I got one more segment, Ask a Dad. We're going to talk about dealing with jealousy. One of the conversations I had with my daughter, and I'm abbreviating this because might be one I spend the block on next week. Um, Dealing with jealousy in young adulthood, because as you transition from being a kid to an adult, jealousy starts taking different forms. Um, you know, my daughter was talking about how her classmates will eyeball or roll their eyes at somebody who looks different. And a lot of it is the school she's in, the socioeconomic group that she's in, they normalize looking like everybody else as much as humanly possible. Designer clothes, this, that, and the third. And so when somebody breaks that norm, that's when you see the and eye roll and all that other stuff. Jealousy doesn't disappear in high school. It just mutates. In adulthood, it hides behind bitterness. It hides behind people making weird comments about women they find attractive online, or men they find attractive online, or somebody living a life that they envy. It comes out and manifests in weird comments like that, and comparison and fake realism. Um, and that's just kind of how it goes. Shows up as career jealousy. You know, the must be nice kind of feeling that people give when you worked your ass off for something. Um, it does come across as relationship jealousy. If you've ever talked about something you're happy about on Twitter, those people cannot wait to group en masse and shit all over it. That's jealousy. I feel miserable. You should too. Um, and so we name it honestly. We say this is jealousy. We separate envy from entitlement if you can, and don't use it as a compass, and don't use it as a weapon. Or use it as a compass. Don't use it as a weapon. Is what I wrote. Sorry, my brain is about to take a vacation. My ADHD is tapped out right now. Y'all, I've been on the live stream off and on today for a couple of hours. Okay. But don't let jealousy turn into contempt, and don't let other people infect you with their jealousy, because that's really what the game is. They're looking for co-conspirators. They're looking for accomplices. So when somebody comes to you with some jealous shit and some jealous energy, they're gossiping about somebody or talking crazy about somebody, and you know, oh, this is flavored like jealousy, don't give it any energy, because they're looking for an accomplice to share in their misery with them. Okay. Jealousy isn't telling you to tear someone down. It's telling you where you want to grow. So utilize that. If you're feeling jealous, you're feeling those jealous feelings, understand that it's pointing out some flaws in your world that you have the power to change, or some things that aren't going right in your life that you have the power to change. Okay. Your jealousy, when you start feeling that jealousy, that is you ceding ground and you giving up on the change, and giving up on the process of changing, and saying, I don't have this within my power to alter this thing about myself. And so because I don't feel like I have it within me to alter this thing, I'm going to cast jealousy or dispersion upon this person over here. All right. So wrapping this all up, boundaries matter, power matters, context matters, and misplaced blame helps the worst people in the world sleep at night, because we're at each other's throats and y'all get to blame on the wrong targets. Black people did not want to empower a white nationalist to take over this country. And I know there's degrees of disagreement about the people that are in office. I'm willing to have those conversations. I don't necessarily disagree with framing the other side of the fence with some imperialist aims, but I always still believe that there's a difference between bad and objectively worse. And right now we are living in objectively worse land. That's all I got. I do appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all listening to me rant for a while. And we'll talk to y'all later. Nipple. Yo, that's a wild name, yo. That's a wild name. I will put you up on the screen just because your name is wild enough to bring a smile to my face, bro. Yo. All right, y'all. I gotta go get my kids ready for the tomorrow. So I'll talk to y'all later. Be easy, y'all. It's blurting while dad. I'll check you out next Tuesday. Peace.